This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Afternoon and welcome to the Sunset Safari, where it seems like we're going to have an afternoon filled with elephants. You've just joined us at Pridelands, just in the Greater Kruger National Park, with these wonderful giants. Isn't that absolutely gorgeous? My name is Taylor McCurdy, and on camera with me today is Gert. And remember, for the first 45 minutes of this drive, we're going to dedicate it to all the children across the globe. So please send your questions through to kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. But you're more than welcome to send your questions on through #WildEarth or comment on the other social media platforms, and we'll get to yours a little bit later. So those young bulls have just disappeared off, but look at our friend over on the right-hand side. He's having a lovely afternoon. You can see that his skin is nice and dark. And we know that the elephants have been enjoying swimming in various dams and covering themselves in mud, which is what he has done a little bit earlier. We watched him from the eco training camp. He actually spent about 30 minutes there having a drink and then covering himself. And now you can see that he's having a scratch on that marula tree. And if you listen very carefully, you might even be able to hear him scratching. No, he's listening to us now, so he's stopped and he's not going to scratch anymore. But that's a very small tree that he's rubbing up against, and you'll see when he does give his shoulder a bit of a scratch, the whole tree shakes. And if there's any squirrels or anything living in there, they're definitely going to get a bit of a fright. See, look how he's covered that all in mud. So that's a very good thing to know in these drier seasons, is that if you are out doing a bushwalk or you're trying to find fresh evidence of animals, have a look on the trees and grass and any logs or rocks or termite mounds near dams, and then you can see how long ago an animal was there, because there's no chance that a buffalo or a warthog or an elephant will walk past after it's had a bit of a wallow and not scratch on something. He's just added another layer. Now he's going to go back to eating. And that's exactly what these elephants have to do. Eat all day long. But it's not just me out on safari. We've got a whole bunch of guides joining us from different locations. So let's go across to Punda and meet the crew there.
Hello and welcome to and Beyond Punda Private Game Reserve. My name is Damon. And behind the camera we've got Marcel this afternoon, and we've started our afternoon checking out some of the waterholes in the grasslands of the far south of our reserve, and we've managed to find a whole bunch of very pretty birds that are coming down to drink. And of course now they've mostly flown away, but up in one of those thorn trees there's a very beautiful bluish green bird called a Cape Starling, also called, or used to be called a Cape Glossy Starling. Look at how shiny it is. Oh, and there they fly. There's also a little wader, a little bird that likes to walk around in the water, called a three-banded plover, just off to the right there. Well done, Marcel. See how it's wading around in the water and pecking into the mud, looking for small insects to eat. And have a close look at its chest and count how many rings you can see. And that's where it gets its name from, a three-banded plover, because there's 3 little rings down its chest. And little birds like this three-banded plover like to spend time around the water. This is where they get their food. Feeding on... Oh, look at this! There's a long-tailed paradise wider that's just flown onto the top of the tree there. Let's see if we can get it with the camera. Marcel zooming in there. Have you got him? Awesome! Look at that bird! Look at how long its tail is! It's absurd. And that bird is called a long-tailed paradise wider. And that is what the male looks like. And if you have a look at the female, she is a very different color. She's like a brown, gray color. And the reason why the male looks so different is because he has to try and attract a mate using his fancy feathers. And so whichever male, oh, he's flown off. Whichever male's got the fanciest feathers, the longest plumes, will be the male that gets the most females. And I want to show you a photograph quickly of what they look like, how different they look. So I'm just going to get my bird book out. Let me get my bird book out. Here we are. So there is the long-tailed paradise wider, and the bird that we just saw now. See the male that we just saw with the long black tail and the beautiful chest that's like that orangey yellowy color. And then there is the female. Look at how different she is. She's that kind of drab brown color because she doesn't need to show off and because she needs to be camouflaged when she sits on the eggs. Alright, we're going to do a bit more birding here and see what other species we can see. And then our plan for this afternoon is to go and look for some cheetah and some rhinos and maybe later this evening some lions. So stick with us, but for the time being we'll send you across to Nikki at Ngala, who's found an elephant.
So welcome to all the kids that are currently watching the show. We just found an elephant here at and Beyond Ngala. It looks like a big bull, just by the size of his tusks and him being all by himself. But a warm welcome. So I'm Nikki, going to be your ranger this afternoon, and with me on the camera is Owen. So let's just head back to this elephant, and just wanted to point out. So before I carry on and say anything else, this morning, Lottie asked me a very good question about the oxpeckers, that if they do feed off the elephants or if they land on the elephants and feed off the ticks. So I did a lot of reading today to try and find out a little bit more about it. And what I found was that apparently the elephant's skin is very sensitive. So those sharp claws from the oxpeckers, as soon as they land on them, they do chase them away. You'll see them flapping their ears or even their trunk. But it's very interesting. It's one of the animals. They have been recorded to see oxpeckers on them, but it's not very often. Just now and then there's been records. But in general, elephants do not tolerate them. And that's just one of the theories. I don't think anyone knows exactly why, but those are just one of the many theories that are out there at the moment. What I'm going to do, bear with me now, this elephant is moving into a dense area, but we might get a view from the back. So I'm going to just wait. Just to see, there he goes. So I'm going to slowly go back. Just bear with us. It's going to take me 2 seconds. So now it's going to basically test my reversing skills. There we go. Oh, and you might get a gap through here. There we go. Oh, and you might get a gap through here. There he goes. And the thing about him is he's constantly moving, and I wonder if he's come down from a waterhole, or even he might be on his way to waterhole. So even though we are sitting with jackets, it is earlier on it was quite cold in the shade, but with the sun it is pretty warm. And I can imagine him, he's probably moving the whole day. I'm going to move slightly forward again, because I can see he is trying to hide himself away from the camera. So just 1 or 2 meters, then you'll be able to see him there. See, he's a bit camera shy, this elephant. Here we go. Just have a look. And so, of course, with an elephant this size, he needs to eat quite a bit of food in a day. Now, what he's doing there is there's a small thorn tree close to his right foot, and he's using his trunk to try and break that tree off and then put it in his mouth. It's a small tree, more of a sapling, and that's what he's currently eating. I can imagine with the grass as well. The grass here is very dry now. I'm going to ask Owen just to slowly zoom out, and you'll notice that the grass around him is very dull in color. Very dull in color, and so he's probably avoiding all the drier bits of grass, and he's going to the more lusher green vegetation. But I think for now he is moving off, and he probably won't stay here for too long. But I think for now, let's go back to Taylor, who apparently has an elephant that's currently rubbing itself.
I wonder if everyone will be able to put an elephant on the screens for you this afternoon. So that's just the marula tree that we saw that really big elephant rubbing up against. And I'm so surprised as to how quickly the mud has dried on this tree. But I thought he was going to stick around for a little bit longer to have a scratch. But he's actually just moved up ahead and around, so we'll try and follow him. But as we drive along this road doesn't get driven all the time, but it's such a nice little link road towards the dam. You'll see that all these trees are completely smeared in mud. Look at this one. This is a great little rubbing post. This is apparently where the elephants like to rub their chins. There's even some hair. Let me see if I can grab a piece for you. The elephant has moved away. Actually, I'm not going to take it out. Gert, if I put my hand at the back there, can you see that little piece there? Just giving Gert something to focus on, but where my thumb is, basically that tiny little piece over there, that is some elephant hair that has got stuck in between the little crevices, which is quite cool. So the elephant came and he stuck his chin here and he rubbed his head around on it, obviously having a nice scratch between all those wrinkles that have covered his body. Isn't that cool? So nice. Okay, let's see if we can find our elephant. I think he's just gone down here. He's actually going back towards the dam again. Maybe he's decided he's not finished just yet. Oh, there he is. Darcy, I wish that you saw the elephant we watched yesterday. He had enormous tusks. They were almost touching the floor. So I thought that his tusks were over 2 meters or so, at least one of them. But the size of elephants' tusks in South Africa is normally about the size of this elephant. We'll have a look now. I'm just getting up ahead of him. Or maybe a little bit bigger. So they can get very large. We'll stop here. There's more elephants at the dam now. So it's not going to be a great view. We're looking for some, but we'll just have a quick view because I don't know what our signal is like if we carry on going to the dam. Just have a quick look. It's not going to be wonderful. Like I said, we're staring straight into, I'm afraid. But there you can see his tusks. Our elephants are about to disappear now, out of view. So I would like to go forward towards the dam so that we can see the others. He has had enough. He's also coming into something called must. So we're actually not going to get too close to him. But we'll be back and we can chat a bit more about tusks in a minute. Darcy, there's one more person that I would like you to meet, and that's Trishala, and she's driving around in the Sabi sand.
Hello everyone, it's me, it's Trisha, and I've got Darby on camera this afternoon, and it's still very windy Juma, and you can see that we have a bit of a rolling start, and that's because Tlalamba, the leopardess, has been around, so we need to work hard to find her. She's been in this area, so we're going to be driving a little bit and looking out for tracks. But first, I'll show you a gorgeous view. You can hear how windy it is. That's probably why Tlalamba has been walking during the day. Full sunlight at about 1 o'clock. Alarms started going crazy around camp, and then she was around quarantine at about 1 o'clock. And since then she's moved, but we don't know to where. So we're looking around, and we need to make sure that there's no tracks crossing the road along that area. So far we haven't found any, and that's cool because it means that she's somewhere in that block. Hopefully we'll be able to find her. I say this wind will be good for her because other antelope might get a little confused about which side she's coming from, which area the smell is coming from, because it's not just from one direction, it's kind of getting mixed up. So she won't be able, or the antelope won't be able to pick up where she's coming from, which will be really good for her, and maybe she will get a meal today. All right, let us go on our way. Now, Tlalamba is the kind of cat who is very curious and and very playful, and generally doesn't walk around with a plan or a mission. She just walks. I'm going to have to work very hard to find Hlalamba and look extra harder for tracks. I'm going to send you over to Ngala and an elephant, and you can go say good afternoon on that side.
So we just found another elephant here, but I want you to have a look at its eyes. You'll see now and again it closes its eyes. Now earlier on, this elephant, we actually caught it sleeping. It was standing up and sleeping, so let's just have a look at the eyes. Can't see any movement. I think this elephant is sleeping at the moment. See, not his trunk's not even moving, not his ears, not his tail. See when he wakes up. So often elephants, if they do stand like this, they can sleep for little bits of time and then they wake up. I think I just want to see, yeah, his eyes still look like it might be closed. Even his tail is not moving. Oh, there he's moving his trunk again. He might have just woken up. Oh, now it's, of course, straight into just blowing a little bit of... I nearly thought he went for something to eat, but he looks like he was just loosening the sand a bit. But have a look at his eyes again. It might only be a little while and then he falls asleep again. Jake, 9 years old, you can tell the difference. So one of the ways we can do it is let's look at the forehead of this elephant. So do you see, if you look at from the eye, the forehead is very rounded. So from the top of the ears all the way to the front of the head. Whereas if it was a female, it would have like a triangular shape. So in other words, so imagine where that, where the elephant's eyes are, like just in front, it would almost go at a more of an angle. And then from the ears, it would be more of a flat angle. So basically, it forms it looks like a corner. But I will illustrate that soon. As soon as we zoom out, I'll illustrate my hands to do it. Another way of possibly saying that is if they are by themselves. Now, just to show you here, if I can illustrate. So let's say my hand here is the forehead of an elephant, and where my thumb is would be the trunk. So a male has like a curve forehead like that. So see the curve shape. A female has more of a angle. So if you can imagine that as an angle, that is how a female would be in relation to that possibly of a male, which is more of a roundish forehead. So that's one of the ways we can tell it apart. But just refocusing back on this elephant, is if you notice, just look at how he's actually starting to rest his trunk on top of his tusk. He is so tired, and it might have been that he's been moving the whole day, probably feeding as much as he can, probably gone to water a bit earlier, and now, of course, he's a little bit tired and he's just trying to catch up on a bit of sleep. Also imagine every time we do find elephants, they always start moving, they're always up to a mission, they're heading places, they're going down to drink, they're moving from one place to another, and it's very unlikely to find them like this, especially if they are so tired and now and then drift off to sleep. Have a look, and if you go slightly down with the camera, you'll even notice how he's resting that trunk of his on his tusk. With the elephants, normally they sleep probably 4 or 5 hours like a day. Like if you had to take all the little segments of sleep and add them together. Oh, I think he just woke up now. But whenever they sleep like this, it's normally only 5 to 15, maybe 20 minutes at a time, if that long. Like it's really hard, because sometimes if you find an elephant, I think as soon as there's any movement or they hear anything, of course they'll wake up. But when we do find them and do see them sleeping, especially from where we are now, you can see he's very relaxed. He doesn't mind us at all. And now he just like nodded off. Now, prior to us going live, he was probably sleeping for the last 5 minutes before he woke up again. So it could be for quite a few of these little short segments. So basically, just imagine this elephant's constantly taking a lot of power naps in order to catch up his sleep. Okay, that's with the elephants. When they get older, I would say they do look like they are a little bit more wrinkly, especially when they start losing weight. So normally elephants up to the age of 50, 45 to 50, that's when they're in the prime of their life. So that's when a bull is probably the biggest that he's ever been. But then as he gets older and his teeth starts wearing down, he starts losing a lot of his condition. And so because of that, it looks like the skin is a lot more saggy, a lot more wrinkly. And that's normally the older they get, almost like towards the end of their life. But it's just so peaceful. I mean, I'm sitting here, and the more I'm looking at this elephant, the more I just want to fall asleep, because it's just so peaceful. Like, the wind is blowing at the moment. You can hear the leaves of the trees. It's getting to that time of the year where a lot of the trees are losing their leaves. The grass are also quite hard, so you can hear the grasses moving. You can hear the branches, some of the leaves rubbing up against one another. And of course, now and then you'll hear the elephant just blowing quite hard out of his trunk, just maybe to clear those nostrils from any sand. Oh. This looked like he started moving. But I think if we give him a couple of minutes, he might just decide to move into the road in front of us. Or, in this case, he might move towards us. So just bear with me as I move back a little bit to give him some space. So what I want to do is, firstly, if we talk about elephant behavior, so if we stop like this, we are quite far away from him, so if we do need to move back, we'll move back. But I don't know if everyone saw what he did, but as he came close, he started flaring his ears. So see that behavior? So let's just see if he decides. Now, normally we keep quite a bit of a distance away from him. So if he decides to come closer, of course, we'll give him a bit of space. But I want to show you, I'm just going to give him some more space. If we do move, look at how his ears are moving. See, he's almost like pushing out his ears. And what he's trying to do is, so imagine a young bull like that. So all he's basically trying to say is when he brings out his ears, he's trying to make himself look bigger. And that's him telling us, listen, I feel a little bit uncomfortable with you. Please move further on. And if we move further on, then of course he's a lot more relaxed with that. So I'm just going to lean out of the way so my head's not in the way. Just might see the trees moving, or him moving behind the trees. To my 8 years old from India, with an elephant skin, it's really thick. And I mean, even though it's very sensitive, when they do move, so I'm just going to move a little bit, because he is coming closer to investigate, and we do want to give him a space. So let me just make sure that we stay on the road. Okay. You can see he's moved into quite a dense area. But so, anyway, with their skin, it's just like, even though it is sensitive, whenever they move, it's so hard that the thorns basically just rub on it, and they just don't feel, I'm sure they feel it, but they just don't mind it. They're able to deal with it pretty well. I've often seen, especially with an elephant's trunk as well, you can see that whenever they grab like a branch with a lot of thorns on it, how they can basically just wrap it around and pull the leaves off without getting injured. But I think while we carry on with our search, because this elephant does look like it might start moving pretty soon, and it is moving in an area where we can't see it properly, we're going to send you across to Taylor with a hornbill.
We've got all sorts of wonderful things happening at the Ndlovu Dam, just outside the Eco Training Camp this afternoon. It seems as though the Hornbills have arrived, and they have been opening up elephant dung, but now they've moved on to tearing open the plants. Not to eat the plants, of course, but I think with this little bit of vegetation that's left around the dam, there's all sorts of insects and things hiding underneath those leaves of those plants or utilizing the shade, and you can see how it's also kicking up some of the sand with its beak. Also maybe flicking the sand up is a better word. Oh, what was that? Probably nothing. Sometimes hornbills get a little bit excited and they pick something up, and then it's nothing. Look at it go. It's working very, very hard. You can also see how dirty its feathers have got. Normally they're lovely and white in color. So this is the southern red-billed hornbill. And hopefully the other hornbills will come and join, because there was a yellow-billed hornbill that was flying around. And I can hear them every now and then. And they normally don't like one another. But every time I sit and watch hornbills, it always amazes me, as a bird with such a long beak has such accuracy. I really do love the way that they'll find something, they'll catch a little insect of sorts, and then pick it up and throw it up into the air and catch it every single time. And probably little, oh, no, it's got a bit of a scratch now. Here you can see it digging again. There might even be lots of ant lions around, and they make these little conical shaped sort of pits in the sand. And sometimes when we come and do walks around here, but its feeding time is going to end early because an elephant is right behind it. Hello, elephant. Did you not see that that hornbill was looking for some lunch? No? It's a young elephant. Going to shake his head at us now? Of course you are. He's just saying that he doesn't appreciate us watching the hornbill and not paying him any attention, so he's going to sulk and he's walking away. Bye, elephant. See you next time. He didn't even really have a splash in the water. He just had a bit of a drink. Oh, okay, that's a bit rude. Anyways, where have the hornbills gone? Oh, there they are. There's two of them now. Normally you see them together. At this time of the year, though, we're seeing 3 or 4 together, because the adults have got their youngsters with them, but they're pretty much able to do their own thing and feed for themselves. You can see that one looks like it's pecking at a paper thorn. What have we found underneath there? Also lots of impala dung. Those are those little brown pellets that you can see in between the birds. So they have been coming down all day to drink at the dam. Been lots of activity. Now, Sue, this is a lovely question with regards to, I'm assuming, how hornbills find their food. Do they have a really good sense of smell, or do they just have good eyesight? I think it's a combination of both, but if you ever watch a hornbill feed, you'll know that they're constantly turning their heads left and right, and looking up on the branches, or in this case, they're looking in sort of down on the ground. So I think they rely on eyesight. They've also got fairly, big eyes, and they look like they're well developed. So watch there as they sort of scoop with their beaks, and then they're looking down. Like I said, they've got such precision. Wow, that was a difficult word to pronounce today. And then they'll strike down on the floor and grab a beetle of some sorts. There we go. That's a nice little treat. But it's really fascinating. I can't speak. Fascinating. Sorry, everybody. I cannot English today. Oh, well, on most days. But it is... Now I've got the giggles. My apologies. It is really fascinating watching them. And they're mostly successful. Another bird that's really awesome to watch, and I might be biased because I'm so fond of them, is the white-crested helmet shrikes. They are incredible as to how accurate they are, and also you see their heads moving around at 1,000,000 miles a minute, looking for things that are sitting on the edge of branches or on a blade of grass. But I think these hornbills have got it down. They go to the dung, the piles of buffalo dung and elephant dung, where insects are going to be attracted to the moisture. Tam, this is something I've not ever thought about before, is how long does a hornbill's tail get? So you get different types of hornbill species throughout Africa. Obviously, the most common ones that we see is this one, the southern red-billed, and then the southern yellow-billed, and then we see the African grey, and then we're very lucky. Occasionally, we'll see the southern ground hornbills. They're much larger. But I would say, I don't know the exact measurement of their tail, so I'm going to guess here, and I would say that's probably about 20 centimeters, the length of that bird's tail. So from the vent, the underside where its bottom basically is, to the tip of the tail, I'd say is about 20 centimeters. It's quite a tall bird. I think in total, again, I probably have to look in my book to see its height. I don't have the app, one of the bird apps installed on my phone. That would give me some great information. But I would say these birds are about 40 centimeters, maybe a bit bigger, maybe a little bit smaller. I've got all sorts of hornbills. Come and feed on me. I've got all the insects flying around me today. So there it looks like they've got a little bit of buffalo dung. There was a buffalo herd that were here a few days ago, and you can see how they've just lifted that. We call it, like, you know how if you go to a farm, you see a cow patty, you know that I'm talking about cow dung. We call them buffalo patties as well. But that's just buffalo dung. And then the outside has become completely hard. And I bet that there's termites that are living inside that dung. And I'm sure some beetle larvae, so some little beetles that haven't quite developed yet, they'll definitely be living under there too. So it's nice for them. They just flip it over like a pancake, and then, whoop, all the delicious treats waiting underneath it. Shame. Those poor insects that are living there wouldn't have known what has hit them. And that hornbill is going to eat as many of them as you can. And you imagine, they must be using a lot of energy throughout the day, constantly having to move around like this and look for food. So they need to keep eating all day. They don't even seem to be getting tired. Back to the paper thorns. Those are not nice to step on. They're one of the worst kinds of thorns that you can get. They get stuck in your socks, and I'm sure they must get stuck in the feathers of the birds too. Off it goes. I think you've already checked those. So we have a question from Final Control, one of the directors, about how these birds actually get the food into their mouth. So literally they grab the bird with the prey, whether it be a caterpillar. They love to eat caterpillars, or a moth, or pretty much anything, little beetles and things like that. They grab it with the tip of their beak. So it's almost like using a pair of tweezers. They'll hold that and then they throw it up into the air. So if it's a little beetle and it's small, they don't really need to squash it much. If it's something larger, like say a chafer beetle or an acacia click beetle or something like that, that's got quite a hard shell, a hard carapace on it, it might have to crush it a little bit with its beak. And with caterpillars, if they've got hairs on them, you'll see them take the caterpillars and wipe them on a branch to remove all those hairs that might irritate their throats a little bit. So then once they've happy and they've killed their prey, if it is big enough, then they literally just throw it up into the air and open their mouths. I always describe it as if you were to take a Smartie or a raisin or a peanut and you throw it up in the air and you try and catch it in your mouth. That's exactly what these birds do, but they never miss. Now, from this bird, we're going to go over to another one that makes a really strange call.
Well, thank you and good afternoon. Welcome on to Simbambili Private Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands, everybody, where we've got a few birds to show you. Some wonderful grey go-away birds there on the right. A little starling on the left. As Trish explained, it's a very windy day. Everything's a bit jumpy. So we're going to check watering holes to see if we can find any animals. You can probably hear those little squeaks going around. Those are the red-faced mouse birds. Good afternoon. Hello, my name is Steve, joined by BK on camera. Very excited to have you with us. Let's see if we can get a red-faced mouse bird on camera. BK, top of this bush. Over here. You can hear them. Chee, 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 chee. No, yeah, right there. Right there. All of those little guys there. There we go. There's the red-faced mouse birds. And they're all coming to drink, you see. Birds love to hang out in these very thick sort of thorny vegetation next to water, and they come down to drink. Well, the thick thorny vegetation obviously keeps them a bit protected from predators, and a good place to sort of hang out and preen and clean yourself, and a little bit protected with your friends watching as well. So if a bird of prey, like a sparrowhawk or goshawk, which is the primary predator of these kind of animals, comes along, first of all, it's got to get you out of the very sharp and spiny tree. And second of all, it's got to get past all your friends' eyes. Sorry about that, radio comms. red-faced mouse birds. They are very interesting birds, mouse birds. A very interesting foot structure. You can really go deep into the understanding of birds by their feet. And mouse birds are really quite unique in that everybody probably knows that most birds can have got 3 toes forward and 1 back. Some birds have lost the back toe altogether. But mouse birds have the ability to have 3 toes forward, 1 back, 2 forward and 2 back, and 4 forward. So they're able to actually change their toe structure, which I think is absolutely incredible. And that's because they hop around in trees, they hang, they cling. There we go. They've all come down to drink with another smorgasbord of birds there, which is really cool. Look at that. The starlings, doves. So these 2 different starlings there. The mouse bird. This is great. You see how many birds there are? And many birds will come at this time of day to drink because this is when it's the hottest and when most of the predators are not available or not around. Yes, Rebecca's saying that the mouse birds look like a superhero with their mask on. We've got some Burchell starlings as well as some great blue-eared starlings, and then see how they drink. Almost like Taylor was explaining how the hornbill has to eat. That's how most birds drink. They have to sort of scoop it up with their beak and then lean back. Always a great place to come and watch birds is at watering holes. Many people have got little bird baths in their garden, attract birds to come and say hi. Wonderful place for photography, as the birds are going to come to you. See how they hop. And the starlings have got 3 toes forward and 1 back. Their ability to walk and hop on the ground allows them to save a bit of energy. They can walk along the ground and pick up food. Thirsty work today. A little dove in the front of the shot here, BK. Can you see the dove that's just landed? Let's see if he's going to drink. There he goes, a Cape turtle dove. Oh, you can't see it now. But doves and pigeons don't have to scoop the water. They can actually pump it up like a straw, which is very cool. Hello, Logan, age 5. You want to know why the birds are blue? Well, it's the design of the feather. The feather is designed to be shiny. And the shiny, or iridescence as we call it, allows it to reflect light and probably to help keep them cool when it's very, very hot. It also adds some form of sort of camouflage from time to time as the birds sort of get lost in the masses. But it's a very good question. Why be blue? You seem to stand out, don't you? But only really in the light. When there's no light, they go a little bit darker in color and they seem to be black. And the purpose of that is very hard to tell you, but there's mainly black in the feather. And the black is what keeps feathers very strong. And the melanin helps to keep them strong. White feathers are very weak and they have to be replaced a lot. There we go. That's a Burchell starling at the back that just chased that smaller bird away. And there's a Blacksmith Lapwing in the front. Now, white feathers have to be replaced many more times than black feathers. And so it's a bit of an energy expenditure. But it's a very good question. There's lots of blue birds. There's lots of very colourful birds. And then why is his eye orange? It really does. It's very confusing. Great for identification, but why indeed? There's a couple little clovers on the water's edge there. This little pan is a wealth of animals. You see how they like to drink together, because if a sparrowhawk comes, they've got a 33.3% chance of surviving, or of it being them that gets taken. If you're on your own, guaranteed it's going to be you. Strength. Look how that light shines off those feathers. Isn't it wonderful? So it's actually a type of pigment in there called carotenoids. The reflection, and there's melanin for strengthening. Love how that light of the water is reflecting off this one's chest in the front. And nice to see why they called the greater blue-eared starling. Can you see the sort of dark patch behind the ear? That's the characteristic feature. Let's see the lapwing to the left of him, big Blacksmith Lapwing. Now, if we can see him, he's got 3 toes forward. He doesn't have a back toe. He's an aquatic bird. He's lost the need to have a back toe. And his toes are quite big. Enable him to walk on the mud. Good adaptation. Walk in the water. Picks off any insects that have landed on the water and are floating around. Hello, Hanu. Age 12. You want to know the difference between pigeons and doves? There's not really much. They're from the same family. They're both from Colombo family. And pigeons are just bigger, really. I don't actually know what the huge difference is between them. They both drink water the same way. They both look very similar, although pigeons are generally bigger. The African green pigeon's the most colourful of them all and is 100% a fruit eater, whereas the rest are pretty much seed eaters. And pigeons, as well as doves, are unique in their ability to make pigeon milk, which is basically through the food that they eat. They're able to produce milk inside of their crop, which they can regurgitate to their chicks. It's a very unique strategy. It's unique to those species, but the exact difference, I think it's got to do with size. There's probably some really interesting scientific reason why one's called a pigeon and one's called a dove, but they are very, very similar. They're very closely related and very adaptable. We see them everywhere. Every city's loaded with pigeons. The wilderness here has got enormous amounts of doves, no matter where you go. So very well adaptable. Now, what I love about this Blacksmith Lapwing is if he turns his back again, have a look at his back. He's actually got a self-portrait of himself on his back, which I think is quite vain, to be honest. A tattoo of yourself on your back. Wait for it to turn. Come on, mister. Or Mrs. I can't really tell. They're identical, the male and female. And they're called the Blacksmith Lapwing because the noise they make sounds like pieces of metal being hit together. You ready for it? Come on, turn around. He's being shy. He's not vain enough to show us. Really is quite funny when, oh, there we go. Oh, scratch the head. You see, I took all the mud off the foot first before scratching the head. Well, boys and girls, I hope you've enjoyed your afternoon with us. It's been wonderful showing you all these birds at this watching hole. Please do stay on board if you want to. And to all the rest of the viewers, please, it is now time for you to send through your questions. Hashtag WildEarth, throw them in on the YouTube chat stream or use Twitch. Good afternoon, everybody. And welcome to Simbambili Private Game Reserve, where this lovely Blacksmith Lapwing is showing us how to bath. You can kind of see the self-portrait on the back now. It's not that clear. Oh, look at him. Best time of day to be bathing is when you've got enough daylight hours to dry yourself. Oh, there it is. Oh, so remarkable to be able to get this close in and watch animals doing what they do. Look at how the water just goes off the feathers like it's nothing. It's from the preen oil. There we go. Oopsie. A little hop, skip and a jump there. Look how fluffy he is now. Now he's going to go through every single feather and ruffle it and sort it out. Probably access the preen gland on the, there we go. There's the preen gland just above the rump. And go through all those feathers once again and just make sure that they're waterproof now that the dust is off. This is a daily ritual for birds. Cleaning, removing parasites. There we go. That's the preen gland right there. Rubbing it on the feathers now. Oil is very water insoluble. So if you've got oil on your feathers, the water just rolls right off it. I use actually very clean engine oil on my leather boots, and that keeps the water off, which is quite interesting. Gives longevity. There we go. There's the preen oil. Some serious acrobatics to be able to stretch your neck like that. Can you imagine? I struggle looking back at the camera sometimes, and this guy's able to touch the back of his lower back. Very special. There we go. Shaking the feathers out. There we go. There's the preen gland right there underneath that last layer of feathers. It's basically just a gland that they're able to access by touching their sort of beak against it. It excretes oil, which they then rub all over the place. Oh, you're looking magnificent now. There's also apparently some microbiological sort of elements to the preen oil. It's not only water resistant, it also helps with certain bacteria or Oh, there's a barbet just to the left of him, BK. Left. Oopsie. Hello. Hello, little colourful fellow. Now, let's have a look at those feet, BK. Look at the feet, everybody. There's 2 toes forward, 2 toes back. We call that zygodactyl. There's 2 toes forward. Woodpeckers, barbets, oxpeckers, kingfishers have feet like that. Carla, you know if there's crows here? We do get crows. We also get ravens. The white-necked raven is quite common. I'm trying to think of when last I saw a crow in this area. The crows are all over South Africa, but the Cape crow, the common house crow, they've really, really done well with regards to certain human movements and human habitation. And they've got pretty much many places along our highways where we've got sort of poles for the electricity or for the telephone wires. Crows have got their nests there. So they've really made a lot of what is our open grasslands in South Africa, where there generally aren't too many trees, but because we've put poles there for electricity and whatever, the crows have really taken advantage of that for nesting. Without the nesting sites, he's found a berry. Looks like a buffalo thorn berry. Bear in mind, everyone, habitat is an area an animal eats in, feeds in, or I suppose that's the same thing, sleeps in, eats in, and has their babies. So if an animal can't have their babies in an area, you won't really find them there. So if you provide artificial nesting sites, for example, then you'll have birds occupying areas that they weren't necessarily going to be occupying. And also around the world, crows are well known as carrion eaters, and on all the major motorways in South Africa, the animals get hit, unfortunately, by cars. It's all over the world. Roadkill happens, and crows have taken huge advantage of that throughout the country, to the detriment, I'm afraid, of many other species, because crows are quite predatory. Not only are they attacked by large predators, but they also attack small animals, small birds, and nests specifically. There's our barbet, looking very regal. Give us a call, Mr. Barbet. Love to hear you call. Some wonderful dead leadwood trees that you find near about watering holes are a wonderful place for birds to sort of hang out. Easy to see it's a leadwood because they are very hard trees when alive, and someone's somehow worked out the math that they can stand for over 100 years. One's dying. You could see the wind on that fellow's head, couldn't you? See how windy it is here today. The crested barbet's head is having a really interesting hair day up there. Oh, he's got a seed. Buffalo thorn seed, in it goes into the crop to go through the process of avicory, distribution of a seed by a bird. Avi. Many plants have evolved strategies of dispersal. The much older plants' strategies are generally got to do with wind and water, possibly fire. Many of the new age plants have obviously evolved with mammals and birds. A little bit older would be insects, as insects were around before the rest. Obviously, wind and water was here a long time before anything. So you can almost sort of work out historical age of plants, how they've evolved their sort of pollination strategies or their seed dispersal strategies. Hello, Edward. That's a very good question. I've never seen proper murmurations in South Africa. We do get the starlings here that accumulate in pretty large groups, but nothing quite like what you got there, BK. Was a little hole. Nothing quite like what you see up in Scotland and in the UK, United Kingdom, where the starlings dance. It's the most incredible thing, everybody. Ooh, there's a starling and a red-faced mouse bird and a Cape turtle dove on the top. So if you've never seen it, everybody, the murmurations of starlings are the most incredible sights to see. We have something similar to it in the form of quailias, how they move across the landscape in their hundreds of thousands. They don't move in the same murmuration, but when they move from feeding ground to breeding site, they move in a very sort of musical way, which I think is quite incredible. But it's nowhere near as sort of crazy as the murmurations of starlings. Can we get these two on the floor here? We've got a mating dance, BK. I was asked a question yesterday about mating in birds, and the actual mating is pretty quick, but the process by which the man encourages the female through whatever it might be. This takes me back to that cartoon with the, what's it called? Pinky and the Brain. Do you remember that, BK? With those pigeons. Let me just move forward so we can see this wonderful little dance. Those pigeons on the street that like New York gangsters. And this guy's showing this lady how much of a dancer he is. Oh no, he's going to first just groom himself slightly. Maybe he'll get back into the dance. So doves and pigeons, once again, a couple other birds, I can't think of them now, but doves and pigeons have got very well adapted sort of retina. They got basically like sunglasses, a polarization on their eye, so that they're able to see when they're walking around on the ground. They're able to discern seeds over pebbles or stones. Obviously, the seed will have a very different reflection to a sort of a small stone or a crystal on the ground. And obviously, most birds will feed on some stones to help with the digestion or the breakdown in the gizzard. But they can walk around with a polarized eye and find all the seeds. Another good adaptation for a bird that walks on the ground. Very low energy input, walking around, pottering around on the ground, looking for some food. Okay, very good. Well, we're going to probably stay here for a moment or two, see what else is going to happen. In the meantime, we're sending over to Damon, who's got something to show you.
Welcome back to and Beyond Pinder Private Game Reserve, everyone. Myself and Marcel are still driving around in the open plains of the reserve, heading in the direction of where we left those two big male cheetah this morning. And as I said earlier, we're going to be keeping a lookout for some rhinos as we make our way in that direction. And we've come across this big pile of dung here, and I don't know if you can see, but pretty much all around me here is all dung. And this is pretty typical of where a white rhino bull has made his midden. And what that basically is, for those of you that have never heard of a midden before, it's where a white rhino bull will come and defecate. And as he defecates, he'll scrape his back feet in his dung, and he'll break it up so that it looks like this. And then as he walks around, his scent will be deposited, and he'll be able to then mark his territory. But what's interesting about this particular pile, so like I said, this is all dung all around me, but there's dung of not only a white rhino, but a black rhino too. So I'd like to show you the difference quickly. I'm just going to find, so here's a ball of white rhino dung, and then here's a ball of black rhino dung. So obviously the two species, because they feed on different things, and obviously they don't breed, they don't interbreed, they often share similar territories. So have a look at this piece over here. Look at how dark it is, and if I break it apart, it's only got grass in it. And because a white rhino only feeds on grass, that's how we can tell that this is from a white rhino. Only grass inside, and so it goes that very dark green blackish color. So pretty easy to tell. And then this is from the black rhino. So again, it's not the freshest, but I don't know if you can see, there's a slightly different color to it. It's almost like a more red color, and that comes from the tannins in the leaves and the twigs that the black rhino feeds on. And one of my favorite things about a piece of black rhino dung is if you break it open and you pull out all the little twigs that it's been feeding on. Let me find you a good example. There's one there. Now, I don't know if you can see. Would it be better if I put my hand behind it, Marcel? Is it okay? So if you look very carefully at that, have a look at how that twig has been cut at a perfect 45-degree angle. Is that not just incredible? And that comes from the way that the rhino's molars work. As it feeds, its molars always cut the twigs at a perfect little 45-degree angle. So an interesting little stop. And we're going to keep a lookout for some rhinos as we keep on in our search for these cheetah. Colton, you're asking what a tannin is. Well, let me get the black rhino dung again. So Colton, tannins are substances that plants produce to make themselves bitter. So when a plant gets attacked by a herbivore, so for example, if this black rhino that made this dung was busy feeding on a small tree, the plant would start to produce tannins that would make it start to taste bitter and make the plant less and less nutritious for the rhino. And that's a way for the plant to try and persuade the rhino to move on, because otherwise the rhino might eat the whole plant. And yeah, so that's what a tannin is. And if you drink tea, Colton, if you put a tea bag into some hot water, that red coloration that comes out, that's tannins. Alright, so just as these white rhino and these black rhino will use their dung to mark their territory, the male cheetah that we're looking for will do a similar thing. They'll also defecate, and in that way they'll be able to mark their territory. But we're going to carry on looking for those cheetah. In the meantime, though, we'll send Steve, who's got some more birds for you.
Thanks, Damon. Well, look at that. It stuck around. Beautiful golden-breasted bunting. Now, for many of you new viewers who are watching the show with us, I know many of the old viewers keep a bird list of the birds we show them. By all means, feel free to do the same and let us know. You could directly message me as well. Tag me on Twitter and let me know your list. It's always nice to see who's got new birds. I know the grey-headed kingfisher the other day was a new bird for many, and this golden-breasted bunting is a special, special bird. Now, you might know, how do you quickly know it's a bunting? And buntings have got that very interesting sort of mask on the face. Can you see the black and white mask that sort of goes over the whole head? Now, you get other buntings, the Cape bunting, the rock bunting, the cinnamon-breasted bunting. They've all got a very similar look to that head. Obviously, the golden-breasted being the most sort of colourful in the chest. The other common one we find around here specifically is the cinnamon-breasted bunting. But if you saw it, you wouldn't see the gold, obviously. You'd see a much lighter sort of cinnamon colour. But the head and the mask are very, very similar. He's trying to think, am I going to go down onto the floor and drink? Striped horse, all the birds that we have now are residents. They won't go anywhere, and they've adapted to eke out a living in the dry winter months. They specialize in a certain way. The migratory birds have an enormous journey and undertaking ahead of them, and many of the migrating birds are specifically insect eaters, coming for the proliferation of insects as time goes on. Now, another foot structure we can see here on this bird. He's moved his bottom, but he's got one toe back and three forward. That's a very classic foot structure of songbirds and what we call perching birds, are also known as passerines. That's the very classic case. We get passerines, near passerines, and non-passerines. Now, that might sound like some really crazy mumbo-jumbo, but passerines basically means three toes forward, one back, on the same level. So pretty much all of the nesting birds that we see that nest in trees, that make some form of a ball nest or a cup nest, so the drongos, the battises, the crombecs, all these small little singing sort of nest building birds are called passerines. Okay, they give birth to chicks that are born blind, and they hatch helpless and useless in the nest, and so passerines are pretty easily identified. Now, non-passerines, which is obviously the opposite to passerines, are all those birds that are on the ground that have a strange foot structure, like a duck, a stork, a cormorant, a penguin. Any of those birds, that foot clearly doesn't have three forward and one back. Ostrich, any of those ground nesting birds. And the ground nesting birds give birth to what we call precocial chicks, which means that they are born and follow mum around, like a chicken. A chicken hatches and suddenly, pluck, 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 all those little fellows are following mum around. So guinea fowls and ostrich and francolin, all of the birds that you find around water, walking around pretty much, we call non-passerines. So a very broad group between the two. And then the interesting one is the near passerines. Now, the near passerines are birds that have a lot of similarities to the passerines in that they live in trees and they nest in a hole or whatever it might be, but their foot is slightly different. Like that barbet had two toes forward, two back. He'd be a near passerine. Woodpeckers, as well as bee eaters, their feet are strangely different, but yet they are still perching. So don't let it overwhelm you. But all of our little songbirds, little finches and the like, we call passerines. So those are the three broad groups. So the different foot structures will allow for the birds to be quite easily identified. So strange, isn't it, that they are classified by their feet? So essentially, this bird now is holding on. Now, if you just demonstrate this with me, take your hand and pull your hand together into a fist. So to tense your hand, you have to pull the ligaments. Now let go of your hand and your hand relaxes. Now, we're the opposite. We will fall out of a tree if we fall asleep. But passerines, when they sit down, their legs lock, their feet lock onto that branch. So essentially, if they fall asleep, you could flick them on the head and they'd swing around the branch 50 times. They wouldn't fall off. So that is adaptation of perching birds. The relaxation of the tendons actually tightens the grip. I hope that makes sense. So that's why they're called perching birds. And this guy is being the most accommodating I've ever seen in my life. Can't believe I got the whole passerine, non-passerine discussion with this bird not moving. Definitely the golden winner goes to the golden-breasted bunting. Well, Beak, there's two of them. One above it there. Did you see that? I just saw it now. Just there. Lewis, yes, birds have got very, very well-adapted flying patterns, and you can actually identify many birds by the way they fly. We basically, when we see a bird, we incorporate a little sentence called general impression, shape, and size, or GIS for short. So the way a bird sits, the way a bird walks, the way they hop, the shape of the body, and the way they fly, all of those general impression, shape, and size can make you easily identify a bird. For example, woodpeckers have got a very particular way of flying and how they hold onto a tree. Mouse birds fly in little groups. Some birds, like hornbills, have got this little bobbing sort of up and down float. Everyone's seen The Lion King, and you've seen how Zazu flies. That's exactly how hornbills fly. It's like flap, flap, glide, flap, flap, glide. So those particular flight patterns help us to identify birds on the fly. And I mean that literally, because you see them and you go, oh, it's that. And when you start birding, you don't really notice that. But those little things come out and you end up going, oh, that looks like a swift or a swallow. Now, swift and swallows have got, what's the right word? They've got incredible fast flight. They are swarming up in the atmosphere. They're looking for flying insects. Although the swift and the swallow are completely different species, they've evolved under very different conditions, but they've evolved to fly very much the same way. Just like if America makes an airplane or jet and Russia makes one, they come to a very similar design, because the design is what it's all about. The design is maximizing that organism's potential to fly. And many of the jets we see in the world are actually mimicked from falcons, and the way that falcons fly and the way that planes are evolved and adapted is all to do with efficiency or speed, or cutting through the air, whatever it might be, and that's all related to how birds have managed to do it. I hope that makes sense. But every time you see something flying, if you look in a bird book, you'll actually see certain elements to help describe some birds. Some of it's very particular about their flight. Safari lover, you want to know if the male and female are the same color of the golden-breasted, and they pretty much are. They look almost identical. I think there might be a slight shade difference between them. I'm just going to double check for you. We've never had them sitting like this for so long. Let me have a look. When you look in a bird book, it'll always tell you male and female alike. Yeah, it says sexes are similar. Okay, male has a black head with white stripes above and below, chestnut back. The female is a little bit duller. So normally the case is in birds, males have a little bit more color to them. Not all birds. Some birds it's the opposite way, where the female is prettier. For example, in the African jacana, not the jacana, I mean the stint African. Oh, I'm getting my words confused. What's that bird called again? I'm going to have to look it up. A very funny bird. Fortunately, I have got my app here, which will help me find it. Sometimes, there we go. I meant a snipe, African snipe, or the painted snipe. Great painted snipe, where the female is far prettier, I think, than the male. In birds, it's the man who has to look pretty to attract the female. And by looking pretty and standing out, you're often an easier target to predators. And so the prettier and more stand-outish the male is, the more attractive he is to the female. Very good. Well, it sounds like Trish has also got some birds to show you. Let's quickly send you over to her.
Because they're looking cute. Yes, it is a birding kind of day. It usually is a birding kind of day when I'm feeling a little sad that I couldn't find Tlalamba. But I think she's gone flat in that block. And in the meantime, we have a beautiful Batelia cleaning itself. I always like when I see animals from far away because it's probably a bit creepy, but it's really natural. Sorry guys if my mic was not clear there. But we do have that Batelia, there's some doves around, and I did go to the Hyena Den. Not active. And now we're just driving about in the block that we expect Tlalamba to pop out of at some point. Ta-da! It is a close bird, a close dove. I am blessed. Hello. Cape turtle doves are beautiful. They really are. I know they're a little bit understated and they don't get as much airtime as they probably should. But they're really, really gorgeous birds. Oh, and the light catching it. Very nice. So it's looking a bit, or sounding a little bit quiet out here today. But that's okay, I'm going to get patient when we're going to keep on trucking with our patience pants on. And hopefully we will be as lucky as Pinda, who have found a cheetah.
Welcome back, everyone. We've managed to mail cheetah from this morning, and they're busy walking through the grassy plain in front of us. And look at the zebra and the wildebeest next to them as well. The zebra and the wildebeest have spotted them and they've started to run. The cheetah aren't giving chase. Oh, one just going, just going to his brother. My heart, yo! I thought that he was going to try. The vehicle, cheetah, they've just stood up. We found them not far from where we left them this morning. They were lying under a bush, trying to get some respite from the wind, and now they're on the move. Trying to keep their as unthreatening and inconspicuous So often herbivores like these wildebeest and zebra, if they spot a predator that's a potential danger to them, and if they're confident enough that they can escape if they need to, they might even come and mob that predator and alarm call at it, as if to say, we can see you, don't try anything with us. Look how he's... So apologies everyone, apparently we lost a bit of signal when we started to move. Look at how the male in front of us is busy scent marking on that tree. And look at the zebra and the wildebeest coming to investigate them. See that male cheetah spraying his urine against the tree. In come the wildebeest. And they're not even alarm calling, they're just almost mobbing the cheetah, pushing them back. And we can see you, get out of here. Oh, I hope you're all getting some fantastic screenshots of that. Look at that cheetah with the wildebeest in the background. See that male also now scent marking, scraping his back feet in the ground, and he'll urinate as he does that. Just getting his own scent onto his feet, so that as he walks around, his scent gets deposited. And also doing just like his brother and spraying his urine against the tree, so that other male cheetah know to keep away. And if there are any females in the area that are looking for a mate, they'll be able to smell that scent mark and see that there's two big strong males in this area. Incredible to see these zebra and these wildebeest though, lining up like a defensive line coming towards these cheetah and almost driving them away. The cheetah realizing they don't have the element of surprise here, so it's not a worthwhile hunting opportunity for them. Of course, like we said earlier, a wildebeest with big horns could very easily gore and badly injure a cheetah, and a zebra as well. Also, it's a very big animal with a very strong kick, and a cheetah that was maybe too gung-ho in an attempt to try and catch one could get a very bad kick to the face. Interesting to notice also, having a look at this line of zebra and wildebeest, see on the far right, there's a bunch of youngsters. And look at how they've purposely stood the furthest away from these cheetah. Now, if these cheetah did try and hunt those wildebeest, those would be the individuals that they would single out. And those young wildebeest know that, so they've purposely positioned themselves as far away from the cheetah as possible, putting the adults between themselves and the cheetah. And hear that odd little snort, that sound coming from the wildebeest. And it looks like the big territorial bull, the big male wildebeest that's in the front. Striped horse, you're asking if there's a certain time of day when cheetah are most active. Striped horse, they'll tend to be most active during daylight hours. In terms of their hunting activity, it tends to, with big males like these two, it tends to happen most often in the early morning and in the late evening. With a female with youngsters, she'll often hunt in the middle of the day to avoid competition with larger predators like lions and leopards that tend to hunt in the cooler hours of the day or at night. But striped horse, it's possible to see cheetah hunting at just about any time of day, even at night in some places, and under certain conditions. But in my experience, striped horse, with these two male cheetah, this is the time of day that I've seen them do most of their hunting, in the kind of the last few hours of daylight, and even into like the last half an hour after sunset. Okay, they've moved out of view for now, so we're going to try and catch up with them. And while we do that, we'll send you across to Steve, who has got some more birds for you.
Thanks, Damon. Good luck keeping up with your cheetah. Sorry about the noise there. I just had to put in another jacket. You might be hearing some rustling as I put my binoculars back on. We've got some lovebirds, everybody. The 2 Cape Turtle. Oh, there we go. They're going to land. Let's see if they go down to drink. They've been thinking about it. Here they go. Now let's see. And the mouse birds are coming down as well. Everybody wants to come down together. They did a study years ago whereby they tested particularly pigeons, I think it was pigeons or doves, with their ability to detect the presence or the approaching predatory bird. And they had obviously like a habituated peregrine falcon, and they did the study whereby they had one pigeon or dove going down to feed or to drink, and they released the peregrine, and they worked out that there was a particular number of doves or pigeons that needed to be there for them to be able to detect the peregrine falcon in time so as not to be killed. The smaller the number, obviously, the more chance there was of the doves or pigeons being caught. So strength in numbers, everybody. It's very relevant. Here's our little mouse bird. He's got 2 toes forward and 2 back. I mentioned before that they're able to switch them around. Isn't that incredible? Ooh, the nictitating membrane is just closed. He's had a little wash, and now he's drying himself in the sun. Look how well they hold on. Now they're also able to do what a swift does and put all 4 toes forward. Isn't that just incredible? Called pamperidactyl. You've got obviously what I said before, 3 forward, 1 back. And then you've got 2 forward, 2 back, like an owl or a woodpecker or a barbet called zygodactyl. Oh, look at that. How's that little wing hanging out there? Ooh, that's bliss, isn't it? Absolute bliss. The nictitating membrane is closed. He's a bit camera shy. He's saying the sun. Whoopsie. That was a little yawn there, everybody. How cute was that? A little doo-doo nap happening right here. Easing back here in the evening, an old man in an armchair with his Superman mask. What wonderful scenes. You get to spend enough time around a watering hole and you'll get to see incredible shots of birds. You can just hear them, the red-faced mouse birds. And clearly you can tell that they live in groups. They hang out together, they feed together, and we also get the speckled mouse birds here. And did you see how those birds all flew off together? Very interesting. The easy way to identify speckled versus red-face is that the speckled, when they fly to another area, they fly one at a time. 1, 2, 3, 4, all individually until they're all together. Red-faced flies a unit. So we're talking about different flight patterns, different jizz of birds, and birds flying like that. Mouse birds are very easy to identify because when they fly, they've got that very long tail. And they're very easy to see. It almost looks like one of these grey go-away birds, but grey go-away birds far bigger. It's got more of a flappy sort of gliding flight. So the mouse birds, they're swinging those wings as fast as they can to beat their way through the air. Hello, Charlotte. 5 years old birds most certainly do have ears. If they didn't, singing would be a waste of time. Birds sing, sing, sing. Most of them do anyway. And they're actually able to hear things at a very different frequency. So particular birds sing at whatever volume or frequency they sing at, and their own species can hear those calls over and above all the other noises that are happening. And the singing is very important in many birds and many songbirds for territory, for attracting a girlfriend or a mate, and to be able to hear. Here we go. Mouse birds coming in. Gypsy. Sorry, we go. There's another group of red-faced mouse birds. They all came in together. So hearing is very important for communication, for alarm calls. You can detect if there's a predator, and they're always talking to each other. Now, when identifying birds, and we spoke about general impression, shape and size, sometimes it's difficult to gauge the size of a bird. When you look at a bird book, you get all these different sizes. You think, oh my word, where do I start? Now, you normally look at a sparrow. Is it smaller or bigger than a sparrow? Okay, and then you go to a starling. Is it smaller or bigger than a starling? And then you go to a dove. Is it smaller or bigger than a dove? And then you go to a guinea fowl. If it's any bigger than a guinea fowl, then you should quite easily be able to identify it. But if it's bigger than a guinea fowl and you're looking at birds smaller than a guinea fowl, you're not going to find it. So those little adaptations or those quick checks will help you. For example, if you looked in any bird book right now for a bird that had a little mohawk like that and a long tail, in South Africa you'd only find 3 species. 2 of them occur here, 1 does not. And if you look closely at it, you'll see they got a red face. And if you read in the book, it'll probably even tell you general habits, flying in groups. I don't know if it does say that in the book, but it's definitely something I know that I've experienced. I'll check quickly for you. Oh, very good. Okay, sounds like we've got Taylor back, and she's got a very cute little animal.
We have a surprise. It is a little hyena that is munching on something. What have you got in your mouth? Pick it up, please. Oh, it's a warthog tusk. I wonder if it is perhaps the same part of the jawbone that we saw the hyenas eating a few days ago. They've held on to it. Now, this is one of the wanderers, one of the young cubs that have decided it's too old to hang around and too cool to hang around at the den, and its sibling has just walked off. But they are going towards the main den, so we will loop on around and hopefully we can make it there. But this is really nice. So these are the ones that I think are about between 7 and 9 months old. They're quite big. They're shaggy. They don't really spend any time at the den. They don't really go into the burrows anymore. Let's head on around. Let's fingers crossed that our signal holds. So we haven't got too much further to go. There's a beautiful big brown ivory just in the distance, and that's where the hyena den is. So we're just going to loop around here, so bear with us. Going to squeeze through all the trees. It's always a very tight squeeze getting towards the hyena den. I can see them just out chewing. So as we go around, we'll also be able to see if the other hyenas, the younger hyenas that spend more time at the den, are still inside the den. But we'll try and get a little view. Oh my goodness. It's a bit thick in there. The grass is still nice and tall. Oh no, there's one. We shall go around. I shall show you in just a few seconds. Little hyena, thank you for being out so early. Normally I only come out a little bit later. Okay, we're going to have an abstract view at the moment, as there's one just on top of the den. Oh, and we've got the sun. I might have to, we'll see what it looks like. I might have to put the tree. Okay, let me go forward. Sorry, everybody. That wasn't great positioning on my part. Is that? I'm trying to put the sun behind the tree. Go down. Okay, sorry, guys. The sun is rather large, if you haven't noticed. And it's difficult to try and hide it behind things like trees. And it's not cooperating. So it's there. We can see it. There it is, just moving. Sorry, everybody, it's not the greatest light, but it is what it is. And there's not very much that I can do. I can't really drive all the way around the den. We've just got this view, but now it's better. Thank you, Hyena, for helping us out in this situation. So it's just staring out at its sibling who has stolen the hyena tusk. Oh, where are you going? Come back here. Don't play games like this. It has now disappeared to the right. Unfortunately, this is just the life of a hyena den, I'm afraid. I need to go back. But we don't have the sun in our favor, which really is not ideal. Oh no, they're back. Hyenas. And it's such a huge den site as well. It's massive. You can see it's basically around that whole tree. Go that side. Oh, I found a hole, which I'm now stuck in. Hang on, I'll get out of it. There we go. Right, Angie, we're going to show you the hyenas in a minute. But yes, these two hyenas that we're looking for definitely would still be suckling. Gert, I'm really sorry, hey? Is that okay? Sorry, I'm just apologizing for the glare, but it could be quite nice now that I've stirred up all the dust. So hyenas will suckle for a very long time, much longer than cheetahs, leopards, and lions will. They normally get weaned between 6 and 7 months old, but hyenas will suckle to just over a year, which is quite a long time. But they will start eating meat. Like, we had a really interesting sighting the other day where we had one hyena, dam in front of the eco-training camp, covered in blood. So it must have fed on a carcass. And then it walked into the direction of the dam. And we tried to follow it. And then we got to the den. There was another adult that was leading two of these older cubs to somewhere, but we couldn't figure out where they were going. I'm assuming to a carcass to feed on. So they will be drinking milk, but they also will be wandering around and chewing on bones as tusks and feeding on carcasses. But yeah, you know, hyena milk is so full of protein and fats that they don't have to drink every single day. And they had big pot bellies, I'm sure you saw when they were standing up. So I would like to see all the hyenas together. That's the next goal. Whether or not that will happen right now, I'm not so sure. There's one having a snooze. Go all the way around. But I'm also not sure what our signal is like, so we shall do that at some other point. We'll see if we can go around and get a better view. But it's actually very nice light now. And it should get even better than this in the next 10 to 20 minutes, which is good. And hopefully the others will come out and join the party as well and play around. I just think it's really funny that they've held on to that warthog tusk. I don't think it's another warthog tusk. I think it's the same one, the same toy that they have been playing with. Yes, we're talking about you, except for the fact that there's just a small piece of it left. And the hyenas obviously have the most incredible bite force, but at this age, full enough jaw to really crush into that bone. You can see, look how white their teeth are, but that must be so nice for... You can also hear all the hornbills and other birds. There's a bird party coming through too. So I still haven't managed to get complete ID shots and see all the females suckling the cub. We're slowly, very slowly, trying to put together a family tree of these hyenas. But it would be nice that every time we do see them, if you just keep taking screenshots, I can't always get pictures. Remember to hashtag WildEarth. Just when we think we've seen all the individuals, we can try and figure it all out. But we're going to try and reap as we can't get to the other side of the den. Off you go to Ngala, where it seems Nikki is playing around in the riverbed this afternoon.
Out of the reserve.
So, at the same time, quite soft. You'll know exactly what I mean when David does that. But he'll do his adjust magic, and then all of a sudden it softens even more. So it's very bright, but it's quite a soft warmth. Lovely trees there. As you probably imagined, I'm doing circles around this block trying to get Tlalamba. I feel I need my leopard fix, and I'm sure you too. So we're going to go back up to... And then I think... Let's go and let's see. Let's go at it. And see what else we can find. Maybe some ellies. Cape Turtle doves have been a company, but unfortunately, I've been stopping periodically as well just to listen. I'm not hearing any. You should have heard when she came through. It was madness when she came through around camp. Okay. Didn't go through camp. She was the outside of camp, and it was just loud and intense. By she, I mean Tlalamba. I feel like I didn't say that. I think it's only a matter of time before she comes out. Now, usually in summer, this is what we'd wait for. We'd wait for the sun to start to set and for it to get cooler. For them to start moving if she's gone down. But now in winter, I mean, she could be moving at any time. She could decide to stay down. Who knows? Anyway, I'm going to send you over to Steve, see what he's getting up to, and hopefully I'll get lucky with Tlalamba.
Thanks, Trish. We've got the Roadrunner on the log. BK, there he is. The Guinea Fowl, also known as the bush-felt chicken, called the helmeted Guinea Fowl. And that's another one, another size. I said before, remember, is it bigger or smaller than a Guinea Fowl? The Guinea Fowls are quite big, everybody. So if you find a bird that's similar in size, was bigger than a Guinea Fowl, then you kind of know where to look. Look at his shadow. How crazy. So wonderful little spots on the feathers there. I always think of them as old women with a shawl around the shoulders when they're walking around, with that little spots of feathers. There's 3 of them. Ground nesting. They rarely fly. Spend most of their time walking. They can fly, though, to get away from danger. But these guys would be called non-passerines. And ground nesting. They're chicks. They lay lots of eggs in a thicket underneath a bush. Incredibly hard eggs. I believe hardest of its size. Very, very hard eggs. And when they hatch, all the little chicks follow the parents around. So suddenly you go from 2 to 15 or 20 guinea fowl walking around. And you can tell when they're mature, when they get that blue head. Keep quiet, see if you can hear a little contact call. Oh, he flew. Now that really happens, everybody. Really happens that you see them fly, but they can. If spooked, they can fly, but they don't really go up. They go up initially, and then it's this descent towards the ground. They're not going to be breaking any records on distance flown or speed. But flight requires an enormous amount of energy. At Guinea Fowl, you can quite often find following elephants. They love feeding on elephant dung itself, not necessarily the beetles inside, the larvae inside, which they will feed on. They like to feed on the fermenting organic material, the grass and vegetation inside. So they scratch around and they spread the dung on the ground like a complete wonderful manure spreader. Anyway, sounds like Ambient Ngala has found just the animal that the Guinea Fowls like to follow.
So sorry for that little audio a bit earlier, we managed to solve it. But have a look, we found quite a big herd of elephants. Now, the few that you're seeing here, there's two like right in the middle that are digging for a bit of water, but you'll notice they're in that dry riverbed, or that dry river called the Timbavati River. Now, I think there's over 50 elephants here. Now, if we move, and I'm going to ask you, look at that big bull in the middle of that herd in front. So if we move to the one group that's right in front of us, look at the one right in the middle, how big that elephant is. Just look at the tusks. Now, on the screen would be on our left. Notice how he's slowly nudging that one away. It might be just to get to the water. Now, because with this particular river, there's all the water is probably going to be a meter and a half deep. So these elephants literally have to dig with their trunk in order to get to the water. Oh, and have a look, there's another one just from where you are there. If you go slightly right, you'll see there's one that actually has nearly its whole head in the water. Or maybe even this one here, this closer one off to our left. So there's just so much happening. But have a look at how deep this youngster needs to push its head in order to get to the water. So let's just give it a minute or so and you'll see how deep this water is. You can actually measure it with the one next to it. How deep that trunk is actually extended towards the water. But have a look at this little one, because it's going to be a good indication of how deep they literally need to go down to get water. And I don't think it will be too long before he puts his head, or she puts her head back down again. Okay, let's have a look. So all that little one is now doing is basically sucking up all the water with its trunk, putting the trunk into its mouth and then blowing the water into its mouth. Darcy, with elephants, it all depends, of course, on the size. But a big elephant bull, like that one we saw earlier, can drink as much as 200 liters of water a day. Sometimes a little bit more, oftentimes it could be a bit less. But so that youngster there, I probably reckon, the one that we're seeing on the screen now, you'll see it's two smaller elephants in comparison to some of the bulls we saw earlier. Oh, and there's actually a baby that came into the riverbed. So, and if you focus on the right there, slightly right of, you'll see there's a little patch of sunlight, and just in front of it, there's another section of the herd that came down with a little baby. But so I would say a little baby like that will also probably need to drink at least close to 50 liters of water a day, maybe between 30 and, or maybe that small would be even a lot less, maybe, I think, heavily dependent on mom's milk, but if it had to probably drink up to 15, 20 liters of water for that little elephant. You can see he probably smelt a bit of water and now he's getting more and more excited. So Rebecca, who's one of the directors, today. She's asking me if I've ever seen one of them falling into a hole. Now, I have seen the youngster got stuck in a water hole before, but the mom immediately wrapped her trunk around that little one and basically just gently pulled it out. And you'll see the whole herd will stay there until they can try and pull that little one out. But it's just such a beautiful scene. Look at that little one is really thirsty now, so quick drink before we set off with our journey again. Have a look at this one right in front, Owen. You'll notice how it's now actually digging a little bit more. So you can see using the front legs. Ryan, they can drink up to 2.5 years. And then from there on, they are weaned from that, which is very interesting. I mean, especially with the youngsters, they're very, very dependent on it because the mom's milk has like quite a lot of fats in it, and it helps that little elephant to grow. And that's why until around about the age of 2.5 years, and then from there on, it becomes like it's weaned off the milk, and it starts. Its main source then, of course, is the plant material and any water that it might be able to drink. Kelly, I would say with elephants, they probably some of the best mothers. Like I do know, like from, I mean, exploring quite a few places in southern Africa, and I've noticed that especially with the mothers, they are very, and as well as the herd, sometimes if a baby is not being able to, if it can't keep up, you'll often find that the mother won't just necessarily leave the baby behind. And the whole herd, if there's any predator, will defend that baby against if there's any potential predator. Also, you'll see if a mother gives birth, and the whole herd would surround that female giving birth, and of course watch as that young mother helps that baby onto its feet for the very first time. So I would say out of all the mothers, of all the animals, elephants are probably some of the best mothers, according to my opinion. And you'll also notice, I mean, it's so interesting to follow them around, because you'll notice that the older elephants almost like teach, they act as mentors to the younger ones. And I mean, imagine now the matriarch, the oldest, most experienced female that's leading this herd. If she doesn't lead the herd and take them to the areas where they might potentially find water, these youngsters won't make it. And so it all relies on her ability to memorize the different areas, especially if there's a drought, if there's a lot of rain, where to go, where's all the good areas, because the survival of the herd is mainly dependent on her. So we're going to spend a bit more time with these elephants and probably start moving on from there. But I think while we do that, we're going to send you back to Ambio Pinda with Damon with those cheetah.
Welcome back, everyone. We've managed to find the cheetah again. It was quite a struggle because they were walking with intent and with quite a bit of speed, but we've managed to catch up to them. We're probably about maybe 1.5 kilometers, maybe even more from where we first had them. And look at them here on the right, walking through this gorgeous sunset light. Mind the thorns, please, everyone. And the way they're walking, Watch how often they stop and scan around. They're on the lookout for food. Look at how they melt into that beautiful long grass. See how often they stop. This male on the right here, just stopping to look around. Just gonna try and get us a nice view of them and then I'll switch off. Look at them scent marking there. So apparently a few of you are a little bit concerned that the noise of the vehicle might be disturbing to the cheetah. So have a look at their body language. Notice they haven't looked at us once, they haven't listened to us once, their ears are pricked forward, they're listening to what's in front of them, and that tells us that they're completely unperturbed by our presence. Of course, I mentioned that they are hunting, so we have to be very careful that we don't disturb a hunt. So if we notice that they've spotted something, or if we even spot a prey animal before they do, because we've got a bit of a higher elevation, we might even do that. And if we do spot some potential prey for them, we'll make sure that we immediately stop the vehicle, stop the engine, and then we'll let whatever is going to happen unfold in front of us. Okay, they've just crossed through that little riverbed there. We're going to try and catch up to them, or let's actually just watch from here. It'd be quite nice to get a view of them going up the hill. There they go. See how they're walking in single file, so as to present as small kind of an object from the front as possible. They're walking kind of abreast of each other. They'd be much easier to spot by any potential prey up ahead of them. Right, let's catch up to them. Striped horse, you're asking how often these cheetah would need to eat? A striped horse, if they can eat about every 3 or 4 days, they'll be comfortable. I just want to see, I'm worried that this is going to be a bit of, oh, and the cheetah has just, okay, I'm going to stop. The cheetah's there. He's just spotted some wildebeest, bruh. So we're not going to move, like I said earlier. We've now got to let whatever's going to happen unfold in front of us. So look at how the cheetah has just stopped there. And listen to the monkeys. I don't know if you can hear the monkeys. There goes the cheetah. He's running. He might have spotted a foal. Those zebras look quite big. I don't think that there's... Let me have a look through my binoculars. They're looking very interested in those zebra, everybody. There's a small foal in that herd. There's a small foal in that herd, and that's what these cheetah will be looking for. Look how they've spread out. Okay, they're going. Monkey's alarm calling. They're running. Okay, we're going to catch up. Apparently our signal isn't so good when we move, so we're going to send you across to Ngala with elephants for now, and we'll catch up. Look at them running. Oh my goodness. Running into the sunset. We've got to try and catch up. Hold on tight, everyone. They've gone over the hill in front of us. Okay, the last I saw of them was straight in front of us here. Apparently our signal is alright for now. this hill. Jeez, I cannot believe how fast they just took off. We're going to keep on trying to find these cheetah, so we'll send you across to Nikki, who is still with that herd of elephants.
And see if we can get the rest of the herd in. So you'll notice that there's quite a bit of tasseling that's happening on this side. So all the youngsters are now trying to drink, and then of course some wants to get there first before the others, so they start pushing each other out of the way. What's really interesting is look at this one elephant off to the right. You'll notice that it doesn't have any tusks. Now, normally with African elephants, both the males and the females have tusks, if you had to compare them against Indian elephants. However, for them to be born without tusks is quite something that is rare, but you do see it in nature. And I mean, look at this one. It's just born without any tusks. And always, like what I've noticed is that with these elephants, whenever they start getting older, and especially if they become like the matriarch of a herd, they tend to be a lot more aggressive because of the fact that they don't have tusks. So it's just from some behavior that I've seen from especially matriarchs without tusks. Just have a look at that small one. Probably had a good drink a bit earlier, but it almost looks like the one will go in, drink a little bit or have a go, and then they'll go out again, and then it's the whole circle starts all over again. Mrs. Douglas, with elephants, their favorite food would pretty much be most of the trees that you find along this riverbed. I would say in the summertime, marulas, so the little fruits that fall off the marula trees are quite a nice treat for the elephants. And sometimes elephants, you can actually see where they've been feeding around the tree, because you can just, you'll notice all the fruit has been picked up, but also the grass has been flattened. So that could be definitely one of their favorite trees. There's a tree called the monkey orange, quite a few other trees with a lot of succulent leaves like buffalo thorns, good chance for some of the bush willows. So I would pretty much say most of the trees that you find in this area would be a good source of food, but one that I would almost say would be a treat would definitely be the marula tree. I can hear, don't know if everyone can hear that, I'll be quiet, but listen to the bark in the background. So you'll notice as well, as soon as that noise in the background, it almost sounds like a bark, like a dog barking in the distance. So that's from kudu. And I think that kudu might have spotted a leopard or possibly even lions. And because of that, you can see, look at how the elephant's behavior has also changed, and they're slowly starting to move away closer to the rest of the herd. Avril, I would say, I think elephants will be able to know. I mean, this is my personal opinion, because For me, growing up on a farm, I remember when I was a young boy, my dad used to tell me whenever the lambs or even the young calves started jumping around, there was a sign that there's going to be rain. I mean, that's just one of the things that my dad used to use as an indication. And I just remembered often before big rains, you find wildebeest chasing each other or impala, and there's a lot of, they show this very playful behavior. I mean, I don't know if it's very well documented, but I mean, from my personal experience or opinion, I do think that they'll be able to know whenever there's going to be rain on its way. And I won't even be surprised, like while we're watching this herd of elephants, that a leopard or even a lion, as we are speaking, there's actually a hyena that moved in the riverbed behind us. And I wanted to say I won't be surprised if there's a pride of lions or a leopard. Now the hyena has moved off and I can't see it anymore, so we won't try and focus on it. However, as I said, I won't be surprised if there's possibly a leopard or a lion that eventually will move into the river or even try and cross the river. So we'll just keep a good lookout while we're watching these elephants. So I think while we are going to probably go and follow up on those alarm calls we can hear now, we're going to send you back to Pinda with those cheetah and find out what are they doing at the moment.
We have indeed managed to catch up with these two cheetah after quite a hectic little off-roading session, trying to follow in their tracks from where the chase started. And we could actually hear some zebra calling in the distance, and we thought that maybe it was we thought maybe that the foal had been caught and that its family was calling in distress or trying to contact call to it. But that's not the case. These two cheetah have obviously missed the zebra foal, and they've now come to this little shallow depression here where they look like they're taking some time out. It was quite a distance that they've covered, maybe 400-500 meters or so from where the chase started, and now taking some well-deserved rest. They don't look too pooped, too out of breath. See how they're not panting? They're kind of just lying on their sides. And if I have a look through my binoculars at their chests, they're breathing quite deeply, but not super rapidly. So I think that what may have happened is that we mentioned that there were a lot of big zebra in that herd, and that little foal managed to get into the middle of the herd, and all the mares and the stallion kind of bunched around it to form a protective barrier. These cheetah wouldn't be able to tackle a fully grown, or it would be much tougher for them to tackle a fully grown zebra, and so that kind of barrier would have saved that little foal. Tough luck for the cheetah, but obviously great for the little zebra. And now we're back to what they were doing this morning, lying down and resting. And we're watching that glorious sunset off in the distance there. And while we've got these cheetah here, it is slightly off topic, but this morning, and Dolphin, I hope that you were watching, you asked me this morning about unihemispheric sleep in animals. You made the specific reference to dolphins and how they're able to sleep with only half of their brain awake, so to speak, half of their brain asleep. And you asked me if there were any other animals out here in the bush that did it, and I didn't know the answer to that, so I went and did a bit of research, and the only animals that I've been able to find research about this unihemispheric sleep is with cetaceans, so with dolphins and other whales, and with seals, and with birds, and especially swifts, which are a kind of bird that spend most of their lives on the wing. Many of them are migratory, and they often have to sleep while they're on the wing. And so that unihemispheric sleep, or sleeping with half of their brain awake, half of their brain asleep, so to speak, comes in handy. But back to these cheetah. Look at this wonderful open spot that they found here to rest. Now, with the coming of nightfall, this is the time of day when they're going to be most vulnerable to bigger predators like lions, leopards, hyenas. And their best defense against those other predators will be their speed. And for them to use their speed to escape, they're going to need to detect that predator or that enemy early on. And so by resting in an area that's relatively open, like this little depression that they found, it'll give them the best chance of escaping from anything that does try to threaten them in the night. I can't believe the action that these cheetah provided us with this afternoon. And I think that we're probably going to leave these cheetah pretty soon, just to give them the best chance of settling into the night. We don't want to be driving around here and distracting them when they need to be at their most vigilant. So I'm sure you'll all agree that they've provided us with the most epic afternoon, and even this morning. So I think we'll leave them, and while we head off to go see what else we can find in the coming twilight, we'll send you across to Taylor, who has found some impala.
Yes, we are sitting with a whole herd of impala, and if not the biggest bachelor herd of impala rams, obviously, that I have ever seen. There's so many of them. There must be about 40, maybe even more, all together, and just scattered out in the open plain, and then just sort of in the thickets beyond us. But we're surrounded by impala, which is quite impressive. And every now and then they chase one another. And I was hoping to show that to you. Because the light is so gorgeous, and there's quite a bit of this oxidized soil that you can see. When it kicks up, the red dust is really pretty. But it's not unusual to see. Look at that ram on the left-hand side. He's enormous. Look at his huge splay of horns. But there are really some impressive males here. And obviously there's no real competition now. Rutting season, as we know, the breeding season has come to an end. It was quite swift, actually, but occasionally the boys will try and show one another up with the gurgles and the snorts, and then, of course, normally ended in a chase around. But like I said, they were boxing a little bit, so I hope that we do get to see it. These boys are not really in competition right now. What they're going to be focusing on is exactly what they're doing, heads down in the grass or feeding on some small shrubs, but catching up on some much needed sustenance. As a lot of them have lost a fair amount of condition. They forget to eat when they're so focused on the females, and also, of course, constantly trying to defend their territories and defend their herd is quite taxing on their bodies. And so this is the time now where they'll put on all the weight, especially going into winter. They need to catch up, but they're all starting to look a little bit rounder around the mid-region again. I still can't speak properly. So that's really awesome to see. I've been enjoying watching all the impala. There are quite a few of them around. And here comes the wind. Ooh, we're in for a cold 24 hours with all the snow on the mountains around South Africa. Tomorrow morning is going to be very chilly, and I think tonight we'll all have to zip up our tents. And if we do find the impala in the morning, I think all their coats are going to be very, very fluffy. They can already start to see how they've started to fluff themselves up. They don't have those lovely, chic, slick, shiny coats that they normally have. Cenac impala make a variety of noises. Obviously, animals typically keep fairly quiet, because if you make a lot of noise, you draw attention to yourself. We know during rutting season, again during the breeding season for impala, which we've just had, they make those bizarre sort of gurgling, grunting noises, which pretty much tells everybody where they are. So that's typically restricted to the males. And then, of course, the classic impala alarm call, which is that sound that they'll sort of do. I'm not going to do it too loudly. Let's not get them all riled up. And then you'll hear close, like sort of contact communication between a mother and a young lamb. The lamb make a very sort of soft meh. Not really. No, that's buck makes that sound. We don't get blessed buck here, which is another type of antelope. That's not what they sound like. I can't do the sound of a baby impala. Perhaps one of the other safari guides can do a better attempt at me. But then they'll also make us a little sound. And I'm sure there's some other sort of grunts and moans that they will make, but these are the most common types of communication that you'll hear. There also are a couple of giraffe. Every now and then you might see a tall head pop into frame. There we go. Just to the left and straight, the giraffe are walking in the... I think we'll go around and catch up with them. But it seems as though there's a bird party somewhere on safari. Let's go and see those feathered friends.
Thanks, Zayla. We do have a buffalo bull that I just managed to somehow see out the corner of my eye. There's another watering point just here on the left, and this lone buffalo bull is being looked after by a small family of oxpeckers, and now on foot, walking. These guys are potentially the most dangerous because they're quite unaware, being by themselves. They're quite sleepy and very grumpy, and their alert distance is decreased because they're on their own. We discussed the peregrine falcon and the doves or pigeons. As they increase in number, so does the distance at which they detect the danger. That's the same story with a herd of buffalo. The larger the herd, generally the further away they detect danger. A bull on his own quite often is fast asleep. Well, they never really sleep, but quite often completely unaware of your approach. And you can often actually detect them by the sound the oxpecker makes. So the other day we had the Nkumas. Nkuma Pride caught a buffalo. They jumped on his back, and his bellows attracted his friend to come and help him. And then he threw the lions off, and then his friends got eaten. And I don't know if this is that individual. He's a big buffalo. He definitely, potentially, we could have thrown lions off, but I'd have to look at his backside to see if he's been held onto by a lion. I saw just through the thicket the other day a lion on its back, holding on with all four claws. It's quite an incredible thing to see. Can you imagine running with something that weighs 130, 140 kilograms, 260, 280 pounds on your back, and you're still able to run? Can you imagine? I can't imagine that. Those South Africans watching will remember Osterrunt in his heyday. Look at all the oxpeckers are dust bathing in the front there. Just the bottom left there, BK. All the birds dust bathing. There we go. And if you have the time and inclination, everybody, please feel free to go to the link below. Donations and contributions are most welcome. We do thoroughly appreciate it. Let's see his bottom now. Can we see any scratches? Doesn't look to be too badly injured. You would think that if a lion was on your back, there would definitely be some marks, wouldn't there? We do have lots of buffalo bulls hanging around at the moment. You've seen the size of the herds moving through. The size of the herds moving through, and the herds will often have older bulls that eventually just decide, oh, this is a nice place to retire, and so he will just stay. The rest herd will leave him behind, and he'll do his thing. Now he's having a pee, as only a buffalo knows how to. It's called the sprinkler. Nice one, BK. Did you hear that? It's more. Oh, can you see them? Okay, so there's another buffalo who's come to join his buddy. Maybe come to drink. Let's go back slightly. Do you think he's gone to the pan? You think he's gone to the pan, Beaks? Yep. Let's go have a look at him drinking. Oh, there you are. Let's try and get him drinking, shall we? There's buffalo bulls on their own. When they do see you, they get a little bit jumpy. So you don't ever want to force them or push them or make them run. You know, they're grumpy old boys that get picked off and hunted by lions. And so you just need to give them some space. And they do have a tendency to run away. But also, for the most part, they will they're going to turn around and go into the thickets. So much for a little drinky poo. There we go, Beaks, you got him? No, he's going to come back. No, he's not going to come back. There we go. These two guys are going to... They probably know each other quite well. Oh, they're definitely posturing, aren't they? He doesn't have any marks in his bottom either. Very good. Well, we're going to maybe move on from these buffalo, see what else we can find, and send you over to Pridelands with Taylor McCurdy.
Yep, and we have found the herd of wildebeest that live on Impala Plains. And there also seems to be some crowned lapwings running between their feet. Now, this herd of wildebeest can pretty much be found here all the time. They're quite funny. They're a couple of youngsters that play around. But sadly, when I first arrived at Pridelands, one of the young lionesses managed to kill one of those calves. So we're one short. I mean, she at least got a meal. But I do like to watch wildebeest run around. But it's not a particularly big herd. There's about 3 or 4 adults, and then those 3 sub-adults that you can see in and amongst the impala. And you won't believe it, as you left us, all the impala rams were riled up and they were running around, and you could just see these flashes of whitetail. I got excited for a moment. I thought, wild dogs, but obviously no wild dogs yet. This would be fantastic hunting ground for them. So if the pack of 24 dogs with a pregnant female would like to come and live on Pridelands, let's put that out into nature and hope that she does den here. There's plenty of food, that's for sure. So I think this is just, it's such a nice area. This is also where we had the zebra fight, if you were able to catch that on one of the sunrise safaris, which was quite spectacular. So this open plain hosts an array of animals. And if we sit here for long enough, we might even see the black-backed jackals wake up. Impala, all sorts of trouble, but there is a lot going on and a lot living around here. And then you can see how thick it gets. Like I said the other morning, all the green trees just hugging a drainage system and then going up onto a bit of a crest, and there's a nice rocky ridge that runs from east to west, which I'm sure has a whole bunch of leopards living in them. We catch them out and about every now and then. But really the wind is starting to pick up. I don't even know what the temperature is now, but it definitely feels like it's maybe 18 degrees, maybe even 17 degrees Celsius, which is cold. So it's just going to keep dropping. But I'm going to keep an eye out for the black-back jackals to see if they arrive. Right, let's quickly go across to Pinda. It seems as though there's a battle of the beasts.
Well, we did have a rhino standoff, See this big rhino in front of us, and then the little one to her right? This is a mother and her calf. And just before you joined us, there was a big bull that was blocking their path and kind of doing a bit of a show. He was shuffling around and making this huffing sound and running towards this female, almost being quite aggressive towards her. I don't know if you can hear that splashing sound, everyone. I'm going to keep quiet for a second. So if you can hear that splashing sound, we're back at the waterhole where we started this afternoon. And there's a big herd of buffalo that's coming down to drink here. And I think that's where these rhinos are on their way to as well. Looking at them, the rhinos all look pretty dry. They haven't been into the water just yet. Look at all the buffalo coming down. I'm going to keep quiet for a bit, everyone, just so we can listen to the sounds of the buffalo splashing around. Just gonna come back across to the rhinos because this rhino has just stepped out into the road. There she is. So you may notice before I go into that though, Safari Sam, you're asking if rhinos live in herds. Safari Sam, they won't live in permanent herds like these buffalo that we've got here in the waterhole drinking, or like the elephants you saw earlier with Nikki. There might be a couple of maybe some cows that don't have, or rhino cows that don't have calves that will come together, or rhino cows with similarly aged calves may come together. Sub-adult rhinos that have left their mothers might come together to form little groups. Or if there's a very good food resource, so some very good grazing, you might find lots of rhinos coming together, but just because of the food resource. Look at the little calf in front of us. So I should just explain everyone, the reason that we are filming these rhinos is because here at And Beyond Phinda we have taken the measure to dehorn all of our rhinos, because obviously the horn is what poachers are after, and so if rhinos don't have a horn, they're not attractive to poachers. You'll notice this little one has a little bit of a horn on his nose, and it's because it is not yet old enough to be dehorned. We also have a very good anti-poaching team and a very good relation around us, and they help to keep our rhinos here on our reserve safe. But look at that little rhino looking towards us. Have a look at his mouth and how square it is. And that's how we can tell, well, one of the many ways we can tell that this is a white rhino. That very square mouth. Remember earlier we spoke about the white rhino dung, and we spoke about how they only eat grass. That very wide mouth helping them to crop up lots and lots of grass. And look at how the mother is kind of standing very still, listening. The bull that was harassing her has just moved off to our left. He's just off to our left. Might be able to just catch a glimpse of him. That muscle just pans there. There he goes. Bull. Bull. Grim. I've seen a couple of videos where white rhino be perceived as bullying, I suppose. But typically when that happens, they get provoked into doing it. So I've seen video footage of a white rhino goring a warthog and killing it, but that was because the warthog was trying to eat the little patch of grass that it was eating. And then I've seen white rhinos I've seen, again, videos of it only though, getting stuck into a white rhino bull getting stuck into a buffalo bull, but it was because the buffalo bull looked like it was trying to pick a fight with the rhino. And I've also seen white rhinos standing up to elephants, but that was purely because the elephants were looking for trouble with them. And then coming back to the buffaloes down in the water, we're going to try for a slightly better view of these buffalo and these rhino. While we do that, we're going to send you across to Trish.
Hello everyone. I'm sure I sound much better. Thank you very much, Tech. Now you have caught me at a wonderful time. We've been looking for Tlalamba, as you know. And we saw a hyena and then dart into the drainage near Rebecca's Road. And we thought, promise. So we went through there, couldn't find anything. Then while we were there, we heard alarm calls up in quarantine. So I'm a little Ferrari safaring. And we're gonna park off onto the middle road of quarantine and we're gonna listen. See what the antelope will say to us about the whereabouts of our lovely leopardess Tlalamba. Yep, I think we should all listen together. Don't worry, I will switch off in a moment. It almost sounded a little closer to Timbeta House, which is actually quite close to the dam camp. And I still see some impala over on this side. And with the wind still, I mean, it's not as bad, it's actually just a breeze now. They would be able to smell if she's around. So we have impala on this side that can alert us if she moves there. We have impala here. We're just going to take this turn and then we'll switch off onto the road. Lots of impala around here. It's amazing to watch them when they do. Okay, let's just stop here then, since the impala are here. It's amazing to watch them when they hear or smell a predator and they all perk their heads up and they start to alarm synchronously. Pow, 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 pow. Almost sounds like fireworks. Sounding quite calm here. I think another quick drive around the block and hopefully we'll catch some tracks. So the problem was, or rather not a problem, in a way it was a blessing and a curse, in that she didn't have any tracks coming out of the block, which means she must be in the block. But then we also don't have anything to follow on because there's no tracks. So maybe we'll get some tracks. 100% those alarm calls were coming from this direction. Philemon's Dip, I think. Let's move it along to Philemon's Dip. Now I'll get to the top and we can look down and listen again. It's just around the corner here. Hi guys. Have you been terrorized? I think we should all listen together while we're on that dip as well. This mic picks up very good sound. And you will be able to hear an alarm call if I hear an alarm call. She likes okay. I got a request to do the bleating of an impala lamb. I'm gonna hand this prestigious ask really over to Davy, who will bleat for you all. What I will do in the meantime is call like I'm his mother, like the impala you.
Sorry, I can't do it.
Unfortunately, my impala lamb there is not playing game with me. They have this weird burp kind of sound. Oh, that's the ewes, the lambs. I almost want to go, but that's not how it goes. Maybe it goes in la 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 la. Clearly, we're not listening. We're not hearing anything. Excuse me, more interesting to talk about. Okay, let's just go a little further so we can see down the dip. Might be time for Spotlight to make an appearance. So I'm going to be looking for eyes in the bush. This makes it a little bit easier with the reflective layer. All right, I'm going to send you over to Nicky at Ambience and Gala. He's also got his Spotlight out. Let's see what he's searching for.
So like Trishala, we're also looking out for any eyes in the bush. Now, we went to go and follow up on those alarm calls we had earlier, but as we got there, another herd of elephants moved through the area. So if there was a leopard, I'm sure it was chased into quite a dense area, so we couldn't find any tracks or signs. So we unfortunately had to carry on, and what we're doing now is we're actually exploring on the bank of the river, and hopefully there's a chance we might spot some eyes, looking out for something like possibly a genet, maybe some bush babies, of course. Oh, little scrub here in the road. There he goes. He's off. Possibly scrub hares. If we do find one that's not running away, we'll definitely stop and have a look. And yeah, so those are some of the things. Honey badgers, if we do see one, I think myself and Owen will then have to do a dance if we find a honey badger tonight. So hold on, it's quite a big dip. And then also the other one we're looking out for is a chameleon. I know Trishala loves finding chameleons, so we'll try and see if we can get one. Show her. She'll probably find one way before us. But it is a beautiful part of the evening. You can see, like in the distance, the sun is starting to set. So it's just the last little bit of light that's coming through. And always when this... So for me, this is definitely one of the scenes where I say the bush closes the one chapter and opens up a new. But while we do that, we're going to send you back to Taylor, apparently with some elephants swimming.
It's starting to get very dark here at Pridelands, but that's not stopping the elephants from having one last swim. I think that they're very brave. Maybe the water is quite warm. I know what it was like as a kid, never wanting to get out of the pool when the sun went down. It was always freezing when you got out, but while you were in there, it was so nice. Now, I know we haven't got the greatest view, but what I think I'll do is I'm just going to sit quietly for a moment so you can at least hear that the elephants are in the water. That was quite nice. You could hear their tusks clashing to the young boys, just sparring. The other elephant is just having a time on his own. He's sort of jumping out of the, not really jumping, elephants can't jump, but stretching up like that. You can just see his white tusks and then splashing back down again. No, another young bull. And then the elephant that we saw that's out in the middle, that's not really having as much fun as everybody else, is our favorite elephant that visits us at Pridelands, Kumo, the collared bull. He's just standing in there tolerating everybody this afternoon, just trying to have a drink. He is not really wanting to have a swim. You can see his back is still completely dry. Every now and then you'll see the older bulls sort of get a bit of spirit in them, and they'll completely submerge themselves and swim around and roll around in the mud. That's always quite entertaining. But for the most part, he's just there to have a drink and just to cool off his legs and his belly. See how they're all coming up close to him. They're sticking their trunks at him, sort of saying, hello, we mean no harm. Oh no, now they're going to play around him. So it's quite a nice comparison to see how deep the water is in comparison to yesterday, when we saw Ezulwini, the great tusker, as he marched across the dam, barely putting a water line on his body. So it's quite interesting to see how much smaller these bulls are. But unfortunately, we don't have infrared, so we won't be able to see these elephants, and I'm not going to put a spotlight on them. Elephants are diurnal creatures, although they keep eating throughout the evening. Their eyes don't quite have the adaptations that predators or nocturnal species animals' eyes do. Sorry, I didn't hear what you just said, Rebecca. Sorry, Rebecca's just directing. Oh, okay, good. I'm just checking. Sorry, I'm glad that you can all still see the elephants quite nicely. On my monitor, it's dark, but perhaps I just have the wrong setting, which is possible. That's good. I'm going to turn my brightness up. Okay, there we go. Now I can see much better. See, so as you're looking here, I'm also looking on my monitor. I have a little, I'm sure you've seen them on the other cars. It's a pity it's not full moon, because that would be really pretty, is having these elephants with the moonlight just reflecting off the water. It would be absolutely gorgeous. And we do have a few sticks and things in the way, but I'm not going to move the car around now. I think this view is still all right. I was actually coming to Leopard Dam hoping to find a leopard or a lion having a drink, but that's not the case. But I'm not disappointed. It's always good to see elephants. We must make the most of it, because they come in waves. 1 minute they come in waves, yeah? Oh, there we go. Kumo's falling down into the water, finally letting his guard down and his young spirit shine through, because he's not that old. He must be in his early 30s, like real early 30s. I don't think he's a particularly old bull in comparison to Ezulwini, who must be in his 40s. He's, definitely a big prime bull, and Kumo is just coming into the prime of his life. And these young bulls, they've still got a long way to go. Now they all just look like one, how they're bundled up with one another. I'd very much like to be an elephant for a day. Imagine the fun that you could have. Those sounds are lovely, aren't they? Very calming experience. Well, an animal that I wouldn't like to meet in the night is something that Steve is staring straight at.
Welcome back, everyone. Sorry we had some buffalo there in the darkness, but I just heard some impala's alarm calling. Trying to navigate around the buffalo poo. Impala's alarm calling just here on our eastern side. Sounds like on Cheetah Cut Line. Very important to follow up on alarm calls. Buffalo are very likely going to bed down right there. The wind has died down, which is great. It's been such an interesting day from a wind point of view. And I've had all my layers on, including my gloves, since before the sun even got near the horizon. Because I believe there's snow in the Cape. Whew. So when there's no wind, at least it's not that cold. But let's see if we can figure out what these impala were shouting at. You hear this typical impala alarm call. Sorry, BK, hold on there, buddy. Find many cats this way. There's the impalas. Tight little group. There's another impala. They don't look too bothered. Okay, well, Trish has also been following up on alarm calls this afternoon. Let's go see if she's had any luck.
Yes, we have. We have been following up on alarm calls. We're not hearing anything anymore. But we do have a beautiful, or at least what's left of a beautiful sunset. It's just gorgeous. This time of night is just wonderful for so many things. You see the setting sun. You maybe hear some lion roaring, whooping from hyenas, leopards sawing, or alarm calls that we can follow up on. And I love going through the journey with you to find an animal. And if you enjoy going through the journey with us, please go to our support page. There should be some details coming up on your screen. And help us to continue going on journeys together. I know we share the excitement of finding a leopard or anything really. Chameleons, honey badgers, birds, butterflies, all creatures. Just beautiful. I'm going to head to Galago Pan. See if our girl has decided maybe she wants to have a drink of water. That would be good. So I'm going to go check there, and then hopefully I'll be able to find those chameleons again, and we can say hello to them at least. Still not picking up on tracks. Ooh, and Nell, you'd like to know how many species?
Welcome back, everyone. Well, the alarm calls have not provided anything, and apologise for Trishala's technical issues outside. We are Trying to bring you a wonderful experience from the African wilderness where not everything works all the time. Okay, so we've moved on from them. We're just trying to see. They weren't shouting at anybody. So we just moved on a bit. Maybe the ones I heard were coming from a bit further off. So far, nothing. This is Torchwood on my right-hand side. And back into Djuma. Oh yes, James. James, it is prime leopard time. It's what we call time for a last-minute leopard. And I've particularly chosen the route I'm going to be heading on back because it goes past the area where Thandi, I had her last tracks going into the drainage with the cub. Spent the last 2 days trying to figure out where. Haven't seen where she's come out. Today's wind will have really upset all the order of things there, but who knows, we might be lucky. This exact little area, this is where Tristan had Thandi out that day, and then we got the cub shortly afterwards. And well, it's also after dark, and maybe Mulwati, the skittish male leopard who is making himself at home on Djuma, he's normally okay with one vehicle after dark. Watch out for a picture I'm going to be posting of him tomorrow that I took the other day. My first and only picture of Mulwati. He was so occupied with Shadulu and Hukumuri the other day, he allowed me to snap some pictures. Can you believe it? In the daylight. Unheard of. Okay, so this is prime Thandi area. Straight down this road. This road is called Central because it runs straight through the middle of Djuma. Goes right back to Voetel Dam, all the way to Torchwood, cutting Djuma in half. It's lined by a couple of drainage lines, perfect leopard habitat. Hashtag last minute leopard. I feel it. I feel it. Buffalo are just below us here. They're not really the best viewing after dark. It's nice to just sit in amongst them and listen to the noises of them bellowing and doing their thing, but they're not as exciting at night. This morning they were really all over the place with that wind. Had them stampeding a few times. Everyone's holding on tight for last minute leopard. Yes, well, it's happened. How many times has it happened? I still remember the story of Byron, who used to work here. He'd be looking for Tingana all day, and as he was closing with the credits, he was looking at the camera and Tingana walked behind him into the road. He didn't even know. Oh, there's a horsey. There's a scrub here. Oopsie. There we go. Hello, scrub here. You just woken up? Cam, you want to know how animals see in the dark? Well, look at that, the hare's eyes. They're enormous, first of all. And majority of the animals that we have out here have evolved different eyes to what you and I have. We've got color vision, so we've got what we call cone cells. Majority of what we have in our eyes is cone cells, whereas most of the animals out here have rod cells, which help to see in the dark. We have some rod cells on the side of our eyes. That's why if you ever are in your house and you're trying to look for the light in the darkness, you can look sideways and you can see it, but looking straight forward you cannot. Rod cells help to see in the dark, but they don't allow for depth perception. And our predatory animals are able to control the dilation of their pupil. If any of you have a domestic cat that has been outside and it arrives inside, and you suddenly see how wide the pupil is, and it's also got a bit wild, the cat, that's exactly what these animals are able to do. In the daytime, lions and leopards' pupils are little pinpricks. And then as the light starts to fade, they can open them to take in far more light. That's obviously another mimicry of nature that photographers manage to sort of grasp onto. Comes to aperture and all these shutter speeds and things like that to allow photographs to be taken in very different kinds of lighting. All started with the animal's eye. The scrub hare, although their eyesight is okay, it's their hearing. There we go. It really sets them apart. Their ability to stand very still and very athletic, very quick, and able to turn very, very easily. Can be using the monocular ears, one ear at a time, able to sort of move into the direction of some sound. Twitching the nose, trying to exit stage left. Very big feet. Oh, hello. Time for a little bit of a grooming session. Scrub hare thinks we can't see him, but we've got the benefit of infrared light. Okay, everybody. While Trish is still following up on alarm calls, let's see if she can get a last-minute leopard.
I am still following up. I went to Gallagher Pan and I didn't see anything. Now I'm just passing the regular chameleon bushes to have a look. The really large chameleon we saw, do you remember that one? Hello, spider. That one is still in that bush, but he's tucked away so close to the middle branches because it's cold. And the one that was on this bush, was shedding. But I no longer see him. Okay. Okay. Well, I am going to go back onto quarantine, see if I can find that last-minute leopard. But it seems that Ingala has a surprise walking down the road, so let's go figure out what it is.
So we just have a little surprise from Sean, Rowan and Eric, and they've just found this this leopard. And we don't know which leopard it is exactly, so we're going to just wait a little bit and see once this leopard comes a bit closer. So we do have the infrared on, and that's why you might just see them at the back. So I'm not too sure which male leopard this might be, but according to Rowan, I think it might be what was, who could be the father of one of the young males called the Tswatsumoto male. So I don't think I've ever seen this leopard before on the reserve. So it'd be interesting to see if he decides to move a bit closer. You can see he's smelling something on the ground, and it'd be interesting to know what it is. Maybe there was another female that moved past. Maybe he is looking for opportunity to hunt. But I think most likely just probably following a female. But how amazing is this? Like, it just shows you the bush, that last little 5 minutes. You just never know what you're going to find. Now let's have a look at this male. Now, if it is the father of that Tswatu male we were talking about earlier, he should only have the one section of his ear should have a big cut in it, or half an ear. So let's just see as he comes closer. So I'm just going to hold my red filter right next to me because I can't see him because we are completely on infrared, so I can't really see him right in front of the vehicle. Beck, I do think he is a very impressive male. Like, and I agree with you. Like, it's just on the right now, he's moved 2 meters away from us, and he's just scent marking as he's going along. You know what we might just do is we'll just wait for him to move on behind us, and then we'll quickly turn around and see if we can follow him again. Oh, and you're still there. He was pretty close to. You could have touched him there. Please don't. I'm kidding. Okay, let me quickly see if we can turn around and see. He's probably just walking behind us. So let's quickly just put in our tail in there, and then we'll be able to follow him. Okay, so there we go. Just go like this. That's all good. So it is a bit dark when we switch it off. It's just so that I can see. So Owen will do that just so that I can see where I'm going in the back, so I don't drive us into a ditch. Lauren, that's a very good question. Like, I'm not too sure. I do remember reading up about it quite a while ago. But what I would like to do, Lauren, is I'll definitely go and read up a little bit more about it. And then I know Eric's driving tomorrow. I'll ask him to give through the answers, or I'll even keep it up for the next time. I just can't remember exactly, and I don't want to just guess. I'll rather go and find out properly and then get back to you on that. But even if some of our other viewers might have an idea of why it does smell like popcorn, I would really love to know. So I'm going to move slightly forward. Just bear with me as I go. Here he is. Now it does look like there's quite a few tracks and also of dung of wildebeest around, and I wonder if he's not trying to smell and figure out where they are. Let's have a look at what he's doing now. It does look like he's licking the ground, and I wonder, like, if there was something there. And it's so dark I can't really see what he's licking. But what we'll try and do is, once he moves off, we'll try and go and have a look and see what it is. So we'll stick with him for the next little while and see where he might be off to, and also just try and figure out exactly who he might be. But I think from here on, we are getting quite close to saying goodbye to everyone, and we'll probably from here eventually start heading back to Lodge. But we just want to say to all the viewers that have watched in, thank you so much for watching, and stick with us for the morning as well as the afternoon drives, and I hope that everyone has a lovely afternoon. From myself and Owen, have a good day.